This is Chris Foligno with Newvision Asia. Today I'm going to be talking about sourcing companies, how they charge, their structure, what the advantages of using one are, what some of the disadvantages might be of using one. Now, in total transparency, I founded a sourcing company in 2000, so obviously I have a bias towards why they can be used, but we need to look at them from a critical standpoint and see what are all the advantages, disadvantages. In my 20 years of experience running one, I can tell you what every little facet of them. So let's start. What is a sourcing company? Well, a sourcing company is different than a trading company or a factory or a subcontractor, because a sourcing company really is set up in a way that it is supposed to be an extension of the customer's purchasing quality control department. There's a lot of them out there. They may be slightly different than how mine was set up, but generally speaking, they're going to run the same way. So what a sourcing company does is they charge a fee on top of the order amount. There is a wide range of them. They've changed over the years, but you can still find them out there, and they'll give you a variety of price ranges. For example, if a sourcing company quotes you 10% on the top of the PO, this is really a polite way of the sourcing company saying, we're not interested in working with you. If you really want to work with us, we're going to put a really high markup on it. It could be the product is too complex. They don't have the resources to deal with this. Now, a company like ours, we'll just tell you, we don't have the skill set to handle your products, or this isn't going to work out. So we would just tell you politely no. But others, maybe they just want to quote it really high and see what you say, if they really don't want to do it. Other ones, if you're talking about very small orders, infrequent customers, nothing that can really be budgeted in, that company is probably going to quote you around 8%. Now, this 8% will include a quality control inspection. You'll have someone in-house who's handling all your account, etc., which we'll get into in a minute, the structure of the company. But they're not really banking on you having a large amount of orders. If you grow into larger orders, then the rate may become more of a standard rate. And this is where the buying offices, who act like sourcing companies as well for big companies, and that they'll internally probably charge around 5 to 6%, which is also what we would charge, 5% on the value of the purchase order. There's going to be a minimum, like a minimum of $500. So if you don't really want to place an order that's $200, because you're still going to get hit with that $500 one. Now, if they see large future potential, they know this is a small sample order, then we will look at what that minimum might be and forget it on the first order. But then going afterwards, that minimum is still going to be there because you have costs associated with it, the in-house costs, the quality control, the expenses, and that. So there does need to be a baseline of it. You may hear of sourcing companies say, hey, we're local, we'll include quality control, shipping assistance, account management, everything, and we're only going to charge you 2%. If you hear this, you are about to be scammed. There is no way a company can charge 2%, no matter the volume of business you're doing, and get a decent return. If there was something like a 2%, maybe it's a company's own in-house, overseas, they'll call it a sourcing agency, but they'd really just be a buying office that might be processing some documents that is not trying to generate any sort of profit. But even then, I still don't see how they would be positive or even break even at that low rate, unless they're running hundreds of millions of dollars that really doesn't even require any sort of third-party quality control, but really they'd be taking those costs and building it in, probably something at like their own plant or a plant they own partial ownership in. So that's how they bill. The structure of them, normally you'll have a merchandiser. This is going to be the customer's account manager. They're going to take purchase orders in from the customer. They'll talk with the customer on what packaging requirements might be, how the product wants to be shipped. Are there any testing regulations? This merchandiser is your primary contact between you, the customer, the sourcing agency, and that merchandiser is also going to be the one communicating with the factory. So all information flows through the merchandiser. So always keep a good relationship with them. Even if you have some challenges, some difficulties, be polite, because if for some reason that merchandiser gets mad at you, they can delay communication or not even communicate with the factory, which can put your whole business, your orders in jeopardy. So that relationship is key. So they're going to really guide and be the focus point of everything you need. There's most likely a shipping clerk in the sourcing agency, and they're going to help you make sure that the booking was made. A lot of times, a customer has their own shipping company, but that shipping company will liaise through the sourcing agency to make sure that the factory does do the booking. So, and what the booking means is the order's ready to go. It's either going in a container, so that sourcing agency shipping clerk may be the one that calls the shipper to arrange for the pickup of the goods. It could be the factory as well that arranges it, but then they're going to communicate back with the merchandiser, who lets the shipping clerk know, just so that everything is being tracked, because you obviously want to make sure your goods are shipping on time. You want that transparency in the communication, so you're getting your goods. A sourcing agency will normally also have their own in-house quality control personnel. This is someone on their staff that will go to the factory to do the inspection for you. Now, even if you're a customer who's shipping to another large chain store or even a smaller third party, you want to make sure you don't ship a box of rocks, so you want it inspected. You do not want to rely on the factory to do the inspection, even if they say they're going to send you photos of the goods. You want your own people's eyeballs on that, making sure it's right, making sure the labeling is correct. So this sourcing agency, they're answering to you. They're charging you on that order like we talked about, so they want to make sure everything goes fine. So they'll send their personnel in, and they'll do the inspection based on criteria that you and the sourcing agency should set up ahead of time. You've built that QC template, in goes that person, and then they'll take the QC report, send it back to the client for a final approval. It could be for the colors, the styles, but also if, for example, you're sending it off to a large chain store, they have certain labeling requirements, or they're going to hit you with chargebacks. You would have all of that inspected by your own person, even before that your end customer sends their personnel in too, because they're going to send a QC person in to check the goods before everything goes out. So you've got then accountants, senior merchandisers, maybe merchandising directors that will all are various management parts of it. But as a customer, your primary people that you're going to deal with this in the sourcing agency are the merchandiser, and through them the quality control personnel and the shipping clerk. Just as a side note, if you're doing some design work and the sourcing company helps you with the design, there may be a designer or an engineer, but again, most likely that contact information still flows through the merchandiser. So, what are some of the advantages of using a sourcing agency? Well, they should go out and find you multiple suppliers for the goods you're looking for, whether you're doing open market or you're designing your own products and you're in the stages of even finding the tooling in that. This sourcing agency will go out and find you different options. They'll also tell you exactly what the factory price is, because as again, they're charging on a percentage on what those orders will be, so they should tell you everything. Again, they should be the extension of your purchasing department. They shouldn't be hiding anything. A sourcing agency that is unwilling to tell you the pricing, or they say, oh, you'll pay to us and then we'll pay on your behalf, well, that's acting more like a trading company. So make sure they're willing to tell you everything. You should actually know who the factories are. You should see their purchase or their sales confirmations, and it should all match up with your purchase orders there. So that sourcing agency is going to give you that transparency. They should help find you multiple factories. They're assisting in communicating between you and the factories or trading companies, depending on what the sourcing agency's found, who's the best price, best service. They also should act on your behalf when the price is not where it needs to be. They're the ones that go back and hammer on the factory to work it down or see what changes need to be done. If they just pass that back to you and say it is what it is, this may not be, the people you want. Or at least they'll go back to you and tell you why the price is not able to match what you want. Maybe it's too big, the specifications don't work, but it should be a constant working together to identify the ideal factory, get the best price, and most importantly, many of these factories, well, the owners may not speak English, or their merchandiser's level of English may not be what you need. So again, that sourcing agency should smooth out those communication issues between you and the factory. They're acting as that, buffer to increase efficiency on all sides. A disadvantage of using a sourcing company, well, if they're not being transparent with you and everything, and they're hiding things, well, that's a sign that may not be the best one. But let's say, for the topic, they're a good sourcing agency. The disadvantage you could say is, well, I've got to pay more for the product. My counter to that is always, well, if they help you drive down the price of the item so it still works for you and you're paying for them, then that disadvantage really is neutralized out, because you're going to get all those extra layer of services, the built-in quality control personnel. Obviously biased as that's what I set up, but we tried to always provide more value than what you were going to pay the company, as well as they then understand your business and they're ongoing there. Other disadvantages, there can be a communication lag if you were between you and the factory. Now, if the factory had incredible English skills, you've worked with them forever, then maybe you don't need that sourcing agency to get involved. You just hire out a third-party group, and they do the quality control for you. But then that's where you're taking some of those responsibilities, that communication, and you're bringing it in-house. So you better have the people that can do that and are willing to stay up late at night to make sure you're talking to the factories, on those timelines. So if you have that, then perhaps you don't need it. But overall, obviously, I believe a sourcing agency should be built to be the extension of their customers, to add value where it can, where they have in-house QC, so you the customer are also protected and know exactly what you want, because you don't want to be surprised, have communication disappear because the factory, you can't get a hold of them anymore, they're not answering emails, you have no way to call them. But with that sourcing agency, they're the ones who will go out and find out what's going on for you. Thank you. This is Chris with Newvision Asia.